For many decades, some scientists have been trying to lift the veil of secrecy of the phenomenon of déjà vu. This is a state in which a person, being in an unfamiliar place, living a new situation in his life, experiences an almost mystical feeling that he has already seen all this, said the American researcher of psychic phenomena Nandor Fodor. Nandor Fodor tried to lift the veil of secrecy of déjà vu in one of his works. He not only gave examples of déjà vu, but also presented 2 points of view that explain the nature of this phenomenon. Nandor Fodor attributed to the phenomenon of déjà vu not only those phenomena in which what has already been seen is repeated. In some people, this effect is associated with the repetition of what has already been heard, a familiar melody, a familiar voice, etc. For others, this phenomenon may take the form of already read or already felt. According to one version, voiced by Nandor Fodor, the phenomenon of déjà vu is a memory of a person's previous lives, of his distant past. This opinion was shared, for example, by the psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung. Jung was convinced that his past was connected with the 18th century. He experienced such déjà vu for the first time when the future psychiatrist was 12 years old. Jung experienced such excursions into the past even in adulthood. Each time, this led the famous psychiatrist into complete confusion. Once Carl Jung saw a painting depicting Dr. Stackelberger, who lived in the 18th century. This doctor was wearing buckled shoes. Looking at them, Carl Jung suddenly felt that the shoes he had once worn belonged to him. Suddenly, I clearly felt that I had once worn these shoes myself. I immediately felt how well these shoes fit my feet. This feeling brought me into a frenzy of delight. In addition, when I had to write down the year of my birth, my hand often unconsciously wrote the number 1775 instead of 1875. Carl Gustav Jung shared his impressions. The psychiatrist told of another déjà vu, which, according to him, was associated with experiences from the past. It happened to Jung during his trip to Africa. Carl Jung was on a train heading to Nairobi. Looking at the surroundings from the train window, the psychiatrist noticed a man on a rock holding a spear in his hands. Carl Gustav Jung looked at this picture, as if enchanted. According to the psychiatrist, at that moment he experienced a feeling of déjà vu. Jung clearly felt that he had once lived in these places, and this episode with the man on the rock returned him to that past life for only a moment. Jung noted that after this meeting, he continued his journey with a feeling of his historical belonging to this continent. However, according to Nandor Fodor, what is of greater interest is the idea that déjà vu is not a memory of the past, but a vision of our future. Such cases are much more common than those described by Carl Gustav Jung. In one of his articles, journalist Alexander Wolcott tells about a woman from Maryland. After getting married, she went on a trip to France. There, this woman saw a house that she had dreamed of several times. Having seen an episode from her dream, the woman experienced incredible delight. This is the story Nandor Fodor cited as an example. A similar case happened to an acquaintance of Professor Augustus Gare, Irish woman Elizabeth Butler. The woman often saw a house in her dreams. It was so beautiful that Elizabeth Butler began to call it her dream home. After some time, Elizabeth Butler and her husband moved to London. After arriving, they went to look at their new home. At the gate of the house, Elizabeth Butler exclaimed in surprise, "Why, this is the very house that I have seen so often in my dreams." When the couple was shown the house, the woman was already familiar with every detail of it. Only one door was new. It turned out that it had been installed here several weeks ago. Fodor's nephew told him about another incident. Once he had a dream about himself dining on the terrace of the castle. The mistress of the castle was also there, and the young man remembered her for her beauty. It was this episode from the dream that was repeated in the life of Nandor Fodor's nephew 5 years later in Italy. The young man had never been to this country before. By chance, he found himself in that castle and met its mistress. The surprising thing is that the mistress of the castle also had the feeling that she had already met her guest somewhere. Nandor Fodor believed that some writers could look into the future, like the heroes of the stories described above. Thus, Jonathan Swift in Gulliver's Travels foresaw the discovery of the satellites of Mars, which was made only a century and a half after the creation of this work. The figures that Swift voiced in his novel surprisingly coincided with the calculations of scientists. Moreover, if you study the science fiction of other authors, you can see that many works represent one endless memory of the future. Regardless of when these memories happen to us, in a dream or in reality, this takes us into the depths of one of the most amazing secrets, the secret of time, noted Nandor Fodor.